because at least I'll get to hear how he's dealing with all these issues. But there's a study that came out a few years ago that talks about said 38% of communication comes through nonverbal elements such as tone of voice, and about 55% through nonverbal elements like your body language and facial expressions, leaving 7% of communications in the actual words and content. And so my question maybe to both of you is, in a digital world that's going more and more online, how can people develop relationships? And I think of a 13-year-old girl trying to develop relationships in this context. But of course, in the business, without something like Skype and video, how can you really develop true relationships in this type of new world?
I'll start since I sat closest to the mobile one. So to me, there's a few things to this. One, the theme I harped on a few times as I was talking. I do think video is a huge piece of this. Again, because so much of that communication is nonverbal, it's visual, it's what people are doing, it's their body language, it's how they're shifting, it's how they're holding themselves, it's what they're doing as they're talking. You've got to be able to see it. You're certainly very handicapped in your ability to do distance-based relationships if you can't see the people. The good news is that's getting really easy, whether you're talking about platforms like GoToMeeting that are integrating in video, which can do it pretty well, to just doing it with Skype, which is easy enough that literally grandmothers are doing it to see their grandchildren. I've even seen a couple of firms that are working so hard to try to get their clients up and going on Skype, in particular because it's so easy and user-friendly. They're doing everything from, we'll set it up for you. Next time we come out to your house for a meeting, we'll hop on your computer for 3 minutes to do it. I've seen firms that have actually just gone ahead and bought webcams for their clients because they're cheap. I mean, for a lot of us, the average revenue we generate per client, buying them at $20 or $30 webcam is just a relevant cost. So, particularly as we're going through sort of this transitional phase where not everyone's really adopting yet, but some people are interested, you can build a path for clients a little bit more to make it easier for them and try to get them over the hump to do it. And as I talked to one firm that had done this, we got them the webcam and showed them how to use Skype so that we communicate with them. The primary value we ultimately deliver to them is we show them how they can do Skype with their grandchildren. So that advisor is never getting fired because he's the one that let grandma and grandpa see the grandchildren. Because he set up the Skype to do video meetings with them, but they used it for other things because once you showed them how to use it, it was easy. The other thing I'd add to this really fast, and I'll turn it over to Mike, is we seem to be creating sort of this misconception that, well, how can someone see like a tweet or something on social media and say, hey, that's the guy I want to give $1 million to. As though like the first point of interaction is going to become the immediate buy point, so if only we were tweeting more millionaires would give us money. That's not how it works. In fact, that's not how it works when we interact with clients directly either. We have several meetings with people before they get comfortable enough that they want to hire us for services. Even once they hire us for services, they often look over our shoulders a lot. Most people, I think if you really press them as planners to say, how long is it until your clients really go hands off, that point where they really start saying, I don't care what's going on in the portfolio, you'll tell me if it's important. That true level of deep trust from those clients takes years. It's not as though they instantaneously trust us on a first interaction. The opportunity with social media, though, is that you can begin that trust process much, much earlier. So when I look at it for what goes on in our practice, the leads we get and the inquiries we get from social media are often the warmest leads we get. Because when I meet with a new client that got referred to me, I'm meeting with a stranger, and the only thing that he knows about me is that his friend said I'm a good person to work with. When someone comes to me on social media, it usually goes something like this. I've been following your tweets for 9 months, and I read all the stuff you join the blog, and I think it's great, it's so relevant to me. And we just had this issue come up that's a real challenge for us, and I'm hoping you're someone we can work with on this. So, ironically, it's actually a remarkably lopsided relationship. They have incredible trust with me already because I've touched them 17 times with communications over the past year. I had no idea because they were one of 7,000 people I sent things to. But they actually have the trust, and ironically, they know me. I don't know them from a stranger, so I have to get comfortable with them more than they have to get comfortable with me. So it's a very different dynamic because of that. But don't imagine that the trust has to be instantaneous. A lot of these tools are part of the trust building process. That's the point.
So we might need 2 mics for people who want to try to talk too much. But one of the things, not just you, one of the things, just to compliment you about face-to-face. Face-to-face isn't going to go away. It's just going to be enhanced. So think of communications that you're having now that you can't do visually. It's just going to allow you to do them even better. Who here has an iPhone and uses FaceTime? Do you think it's amazing? Yes, no? Grandparents love it. So FaceTime, if you don't know it, this is your smartphone. You can do a video chat whatever you want. So a grandparent, for example, the grandkid just hit a home run in the Little League. They're there, or they can be all the way across the country. And you're starting to see this. Things like Google Hangouts, and it's very similar to GoToMeeting, some of the video conferencing, but there's things that are free like Skype. I did a presentation to the Institute for Preparing Heirs. One of the biggest problems is that the older generations aren't talking to the younger generations when the wealth gets transferred. And if the stats are true, you're going to lose a lot of business when your clients pass away, unfortunately. One of the best things to do is to enhance, so to go back to John's question, is you think of how you can maybe have your real clients, the current older generation in your office, but start to connect with that multi-generational family that might be all over the country where you can't meet face-to-face, and start to bring them in. There's a lot that we can answer, but I'll just try to keep it short so we get more questions.
Yeah, why don't we'll start off. I know you've been ready to, if you could speak loudly, and I'll try to repeat the question if possible.
I'm going back, Mike, to one of the very first things you said about a mission statement, and you kind of threw off, is it's good to use it for marketing. So I wanted to talk a little bit more about, is your mission statement for internal purposes, or is it for external purposes? Because I think it can take it in 2 different ways, and I just wanted you to talk about that a little more.
So the purpose of mission statements, are they really internal documents, or are they more for an external document?
Honestly, if you do it well, there's no reason not to share it. If one of the problems when they try to be internal, they try to put too much into it, and it gets too cumbersome. The biggest flaw of mission statements oftentimes is it's too long and nobody can remember it. You need to be concise and to the point. And you want to, I personally think that you want the outside world to know why you're in business, why you're there. And so it's a real challenge to wordsmith those things and get it concise. I've seen companies take 6 months to get them done. But hopefully that answers your question.
Going back to your example of sitting on the person asked the question, I want to retire 2 years later, 5 years later, move that bar. No, that kind of, who's asking about different types of software, different types of planning. Is that more of a retirement-based type of planning where you're looking to see if you have money in your assets? But there's also cash flow based. So if you ask, okay, what if I retire 5 years later? There's a whole lot of things in that 5 years that might be happening. You can't just move a bar and say, okay, I'm working 5 more years. There may be expenses that occur because they're not working, and then they would occur if they weren't working. All these different things. My question is, if you had to do that in front of a person online, and it took 10 or 15 minutes to do it, instead of just moving this bar, does your research show that people can sit there and wait while they're doing it?
So I think the question is more, the technology is moved in retirement planning, for example. Is the technology good enough to actually do there right in front of the client? Whether it's goal-based, whether it's cash flow-based, et cetera. Is the technology there yet to do it?
Good question. Certainly, the longer it takes to do that kind of update and live interactive process, the worse it's going to be. And that's less about sort of the sheer kind of feedback behavioral mechanism of it. I mean, at least, you're going to sit there and you're having a by the meeting, which is pretty good. But it's just a pretty crappy, excruciating meeting when you're sitting there with 15-minute lulls of silence while you're rearranging a zillion numbers and they're trying to make it work. Some of that, I think, is simply a technology constraint. Our software is not written, for the most part, to be done live on the fly with clients. So, there are certainly ways that you can make that a lot easier, like not only having some sliders to move things like the retirement year, but having an easy one-click thing where you can type in, well, all right, this would mean you have about another $20,000 of outflows this year. So I can type in a quick 20 grand here. I can type in a quick $10,000 extra savings item there. So something where I could do it live immediately, adjust the thing on the fly, not have to go in through 17 screens of depth, say, well, here's where you change this number, but then here's this other place you change that number. Again, I think a lot of that is a design issue. We didn't make the software to be prepared to do this. So we're trying to sort of end run around it now. Some packages are doing that better than others. The other caveat to it, I think, as well is, well, sort of twofold. One, I think there's an ever-present challenge in finding that we have to be careful that we don't mistake precision for accuracy. I can enter a goal in that you're going to retire $100,000 a year, or I can enter a goal that you're going to retire $101,322.17 a year. And the reality is neither of those are going to be materially different in making a decision. Now, this is me coming to the table as like a hardcore quant guy. I love every cash flow and every tax analysis. But I still think sometimes we fall into a little bit too much of a trap of trying to drill down to too much precision to the numbers when just the error bars on the returns over 30 years alone is so much more dramatic than a lot of the cash flow adjustments that we make. Now we can figure out how to communicate that better. Our software can do more to support that, to help us try to make the distinction between what are things that are big enough we really do need to capture them and what are things that are small enough that we can kind of call them rounding errors and say we're close enough. And certainly, I think you can build a process with clients that says, look, so we're going to do sort of heavy blocking and tackling here. I'm going to send you a follow-up on the final conclusion that has the additional detail. But if I've done a good enough job on the high-level stuff, the additional detail should really just be that, not change the outcome, just be additional details to the outcome so that I can plan accordingly. So I think some of it is software constraints, some of it is just expectations constrained around what we imply to clients is and is not accuracy, is not precision, and does not help them get to their decision points.
So a follow-up question though is that if you're sitting in front of a client and you move this far and you can answer their question, in 30 seconds, would anybody say, that's what I'm paying $25,000?
Good question. So two things. One, if I can move all these sliders for free, is someone going to still pay me $25,000? Say, is that all you're doing for me? Yes, some of that efficiency is going to put some pressure on your price, or at least to say what exactly is your value add. The flip side is, I guarantee you in a few more years, people are also going to make software packages that are capable of doing it online directly and for free, because those will add the course that can generate a little revenue off of people spending time on the page. So it's a lot better than the clients who are going to go out and try to do it on their own for free because they don't want to pay you $25,000 either. So yes, I do think that creates some challenge points to our revenue models and where's our value add. Certainly it's going to make the point pretty quickly. The value add is not the software and the ability to do a projection. It's the conversations that we have around it and what conclusions do we draw from it and what recommendations do we make, and then do we help people actually get to a positive outcome in the process. I can go online right now, whether I do software with my doctor or directly online, that will tell me how many calories I need to trim out of my diet in order to lose 10 pounds over the next 2 months. It's just math. It's not that different from our financial planning projections, but the value add is not in just being able to solve a math problem. The value add is how I apply it. So I think that will continue to have value, and that's not going to change. But it is going to start impressing upon people if all you're doing is the software, if all you're doing is the stuff that's commoditized, that's going to become a problem for your business.
Yeah,